We are getting into the next panel discussion. This discussion will be based on the concept of intellectual property, which aims to reward creators and innovators for their efforts. And we will be specifically, as you all know, be dealing with filmmaking, how to navigate IP issues when you are dealing with your craft of making films or movies. The basic idea of IP is that somebody who creates needs to be incentivized, needs to be rewarded for their effort, so that they can keep on creating and sharing with us, and so that we can also enjoy whatever that they have created. And in the world of filmmaking, how then do we ensure that people who create these beautiful stories are rewarded, are able to retain the ownership of whatever that they have done? A very critical aspect here is filmmaking in Botswana owning our narratives. Allow my team to make final touches to prepare for the beautiful panel that is coming before us. And this is how we will be dealing with the discussion today. First of all, we will introduce the panelists, and I will do that once my colleague signs to me that everything is in order. Once we are done with that, we will then have one of the panelists making a presentation for us, dealing with all the aspects that we'll be dealing with in the discussion. And thereafter now we'll hone into the issues and ask each and every panelist to have their say in the discussion. I will be giving them some questions. And once they are done with those questions, we will have 10-15 minutes to allow you to ask questions, to comment, and to share with us some of the expertise that you have. My team informs me while they are still busy dealing with this. Just raise up your head this side. Yes. People who know how to beautify events. Yes. So they were struggling with So it appears that everything is in order. Allow me to introduce to speak, to call to the front our panelists. I will start off in our neighboring country in the western side. We have Mayor Glendea Baile from Namibia Broadcasting Commission. Let's welcome her with a clap. We seem not to have anyone from Companies and Intellectual Property Authority. Please, if you are here, show us by hand. 3, twice, once, go. We have Mayor Maseho Jeremiah from Botswana Communications Regulatory Authority, BOCRA. She seems to be some kind of celebrity that I'm not aware of. From South Africa, specifically Gauteng Film Commission, we have Mayor Nanom TV. Let's welcome her, please. Do we have anyone here from Citizen Entrepreneurial Development Agency? SEDA. Goes twice, once, auctioned. Right, no one is here, so we'll go back to South Africa and get our dear panelist Onke Dueko from the National Film and Video Foundation. Let's welcome her. As she comes along, my team, okay, are we having only one mic? Are we having only one mic? Team. All right. Right. We then have back in Botswana we have the CEO of Copyright Society of Botswana, COSPOTS, Mr. Letlogonono Mapinja. You're welcome, sir. Right. So, it appears we have one shot, so let's deal with that one. Yes. To start off our discussions, we need to know who are the people in front of us. So they're just going to do a brief introduction of themselves and the organizations that they work for. We can start right here with Mr. Letlogonono Mapinja.
Good morning, still a morning, thank you. As already introduced, we are Letlogonono Mapinja. I am the CEO of the Copyright Society of Botswana. The Copyright Society of Botswana is a rights management organization. We deal with what we call secondary rights. What that simply means is you take your movie to Now Television, you take it to BTV 123, whichever form of way, then we license them for such. I know people always confuse. We are not in the business of making people super rich. That's why I get secondary rights. What means after the fact, you have to produce something, you have to make sure that it gets sold, you have to make sure that it gets broadcasted. So as soon as it has done your Metro, your Capital Cinema, this is where now we come in as COSPOTS, whereby now there's going to be a reshow of your film, because they're only allowed to actually show it out like once. Then we do come in and license it. The whole idea is to make sure that whenever your work is being used, as many times it can be, we license it and we give money to those that have created that work, maybe the producer, or in whatever form of way the contracts between the film director and the performers and other creators involved.
Thank you very much. Your minute is up. Thank you. Next.
Good afternoon, morning, everyone. I'm Onke from the National Film and Video Foundation, also known as the NFVF. So we are the national funding body in South Africa. We fund across the value chain: development funding, production funding, post-production funding, marketing and distribution. Central to what we do is also research. So we conduct research about the industry that reflects the industry back to itself. We also conduct research that looks at how well we're doing, right, on a 5-year basis. And then we do quite a number of special projects, such as the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program. It was a program that was instituted by the presidency to give relief funding to filmmakers because of COVID. And we have quite a number of co-productions. We have 12 co-productions with different countries around the world: the Netherlands, Germany, France, Canada, which is our oldest one since 1997, and we have 2 on the continent, Nigeria and Kenya, and in the process of establishing more across the continent. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nanomo TV from the Gauteng Film Commission. We are the regional body that funds filmmakers. What normally happens is that filmmakers will go to the NFVF as the national body to get the bigger chunk of the budget, and then once they're funded there, or they have a letter of intent from a bigger funder, then they come to us for bridging finance, unless if it's a film with a very small budget. But we, of course, also fund film festivals, we fund script writing, we fund mentorship, skills development, audience development, marketing and distribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Masoro Maya from the Botswana Communications Regulatory Authority, BOCRA. We regulate the communication sector, being telecommunications, broadcasting, postal, ICTs in general, but my line of specialty is broadcasting regulation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Glenda Bailey. I am from the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation. I am predominantly responsible for creating content for the channels that the national broadcaster has. For working for a broadcaster, the broadcaster thing also understood that we have a responsibility to grow this industry that we all love so much. And last year, NBC, together with MultiChoice, pushed out 13 short stories, which is currently showing on Netflix, which is a clear indication that from a broadcaster's perspective, we also have a responsibility to support and grow the film industry. So that is what from the broadcaster's perspective. And in my personal capacity, I'm a line producer.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, let me inform my dear panelists that we have 1 hour instead of the time that we discussed. So we need to be there fast. I will call on the first speaker to make a presentation on owning our narratives. Nanomo TV. Can we encourage you with some form of hands? Thank you very much. So as she's preparing, please make sure that you have your questions written. We're going to take quite a few of them. Okay.
Okay, maybe we can dim our lights a bit. As you've heard, we only have 1 hour, so I've hidden some of the slides that I would have liked to share with you. And obviously our topic is two-pronged. There's the aspect of preserving our narratives and there's the intellectual property and so forth. So we've tried to find a way to merge the two ideas together, especially in the context of Botswana and the direction that Botswana are taking. I've already introduced myself, so I won't go too much into what we're about, except to say that the presentation we want to bring to you as a panel is how to develop winning IT strategies, winning IP and narrative strategies as Botswana. So this is really customized for the Botswana situation, and then of course looking at other global trends and then South African trends, and what we've done is what we are trying to do in South Africa to address the issue of owning our own narratives. So we know that it's a very complicated situation, the owning of narratives, and we know that there's different distribution models, and it's great that we've had the distribution presentation before this one. So the South African distribution model is that mostly producers, they do their filming and they go straight to license. It's very rare that they go through a distributor. Because as you might have picked up, distribution, we're still very much behind on that. And also because platforms are much more accessible to us. If I'm producing a film, I know where the SABC head office is, I know how to access Netflix, I know how to access MultiChoice, so I seldom need a distributor. So filmmakers think it's a shortcut to just go straight to the licensor. Of course it comes with its own disadvantages, and I won't go too much into it because of time. In the EU and the US, they are very big on distribution. And so much that because their market is so big and they have so many platforms and there's so much competition, they are big on distribution, and distribution becomes the middleman between the filmmaker and the platform. But also they've even added another layer which is called the aggregation. So in the US and the EU, you can't approach a distributor directly. You have to go through an aggregator that will then introduce you to, that will then take you to a distributor. But also remember, that's a huge market. So we're seeing that in Nigeria, distribution is popping. But if that grows fast enough, you're going to see the middleman between the middlemen. So in 10 years' time, we can have somebody who's going to introduce you to Mr. Ahayo as your distributor, because now he's inaccessible and he's become so big. And so that's in the Nigerian model, how it started. We already got the history, so I won't go too much into it. It started as a direct to market with the DVD, so the guys would literally sell their films themselves. Now they've developed the distribution, but now also they're going straight to platform through the YouTubes and the likes. But what I like, the reason why I've distinguished also them is I also need us to look at them in the context of the narratives. Bollywood is a joint, it's a hybrid of funding the government. They get a lot of assistance from the government that has made an intentional decision that they want to develop the film industry. So there's distribution, there's big distribution companies there, but there's also a lot of assistance from the government. What's interesting about this, what I need us to be aware of in this, is that every model determines how the narrative or the owning of the narrative, because whoever pays the piper calls the tune. And I think to illustrate this point, I'm going to play a video for you of something that happened. I don't know how many of you follow South African news, but South Africa has taken a very unliteral stance towards the war on Ukraine. And as a result, the US felt that they want to pull out of AGOA, which is our biggest trading partner. So a lot of our export materials we export through AGOA. And what they then did is, for us to justify, as they're making the decision, they called South African journalists and other key influential South Africans into their parliamentary session and asked them to explain why South Africa must remain in AGOA, or why the AGOA agreement must remain. But what was interesting, what I picked up in that session, it was a 3-hour grilling session where they were grilling South Africans on why AGOA should happen. But this was the interesting thing that I picked up from this interview. And I hope you can see that. If you can just listen carefully, I hope that the audio is good. I forgot to test the audio.
Thank you. So one area that is ripe for greater engagement is South Africa's blossoming creative industries, which employ nearly 7% of the national workforce and are supported by foreign investment. So, Ms. Abi, can you share how you think deepening U.S. engagement and support for South Africa's homegrown film and television industry could help strengthen the bilateral relationship?
That is an area that I'm very passionate about, because it's an area that offers us an opportunity to share universal values and beliefs, whether it is through of democracy, of human rights. South African artists are very political, and by that, I don't mean they are aligned with this party or that party. They care about society. They produce output that constantly shifts the needle. In fact, I've seen commentary on social media where people make a joke that our weakest link is the state, because we've got these globally talented citizens who go anywhere in the world and they make a mark. And that is why I'm saying, in reviewing your relationship with South Africa, remember those people. They have contributed to the global market of ideas. They are entrepreneurial, they are innovative. Every single day in South Africa, we see their output and their occupation of the global stage. So I would say that investment into those creative industries will unleash the potential of South Africa. It will create jobs. It will absorb even more of the township youth into the labor market. There are so many people who can't afford a university degree, and I think we are still backward in a lot of ways, Tony, in seeing social mobility as being dependent on a university degree, which is important. I would be here today if I didn't have an education. But we have a plurality and a diversity in South Africa that you must care about. It deepens democracy, it gives young people a sense of agency, and it creates a global village of give up on us in that regard.
So this is very great to hear, but I don't know if everybody can pick up that the American Congress is already preparing to infiltrate the South African film industry. That is what this is telling you. Okay, and the African Bank, if you look at the IATF and all the other conversations, global trade conversations that have been taking place, is that the first world has realized that the golden economy is Africa's creative industry. That's the next diamonds, those are the next minerals. That's the next gold, that's the next diamonds, that's the next copper and platinum and everything else. It's our creative industries. And what they're already doing is to position themselves into appropriating, into commercializing those narratives that are ours. And I'll make a few examples as I go along, and I won't be long because of time, but I just want us to be able to understand the importance of being able to own our narrative, and to also understand the dynamic that we are operating under, that while our local governments are censoring artists, while our local governments are making sure that they're defunding the creative sectors, in many countries we know that politicians, when you're not doing well, or you fired, or you suspended, they take you to the arts ministry, because that's the department that requires less work, or that's the waiting room for politicians. But while we are treating our arts like, our art industries like that, the Americans are gonna be pumping money. So all of us who are sitting here saying we don't have money, the Americans are gonna come and give us all the money that we're asking to be given to us, because they are now having their eyes on the African narrative.
Yes.
So how do we mitigate that? And like I said, the thing that makes it difficult for us to tell our stories, it's a rights-led mind. It's very difficult to be able to mine your narrative. And what we're working through in South Africa now is we're working with the departments to work on programs that are assisting us to own our narratives. Because when you do a film that is based on owning your narrative, history and heritage, the biggest chunk of your budget needs to go to rights, needs to go to copyrights, needs to go to intellectual property. Because we need to acknowledge that you are not telling a story that you just thought up. So an example, I've made a few examples. There's many stories that are existing already in our communities, like the story of the Soweto Chess Club. People don't know about it, right? The story of the Williams sisters the Venus sisters coming to play a tennis game in Soweto. It's a big international story. Nobody in South Africa has told that story yet. What is going to happen is that a European is going to come and tell that story, and they're going to tell it from their narrative, and then the finances and all the other rights that come from that, and the revenue that comes from that will be enjoyed by whoever produced the story. The story of the Rugby Academy, the first black rugby academy to take place in South Africa. The story of the Jake Ntuli swimming pool, who was the first African to swim in the Olympics. The story of the Kasi soccer legends. We all know the story of the soccer legends in South Africa and how big soccer is. And the golf clubs. We all know that the stories of the golf legends that have played in our countries. What are the equivalent of those stories in Botswana? And who is going to tell those stories? Right? That is where you start. So there's the past, the present, and the future. So right now, the first point where you start in terms of owning our narratives, we need to have a list of all our iconic stories as a country. Somebody needs to take responsibility for that. The Department of Arts and Culture needs to take responsibility for that, and there needs to be producers that are purely commissioned to go and tell those stories, and that needs to be a national project. And it's a numbers game, and I'm saying this because it's a numbers game. So the beautiful thing about these stories is that when you tell legendary stories that are true, they've got the potential to become global stories because they are true stories. And because when you go into the market, it's a numbers game. We have to churn out as many stories as possible, because out of 10 films that you produce, maybe only 5 will make it across the continent and only 1 will make it global. So we have to invest as many as possible. We have to budget for legal. Film owners must budget for legal, they must budget for rights. Otherwise, we end up with the situation like the Jerusalem story. I think we all know the global story in Jerusalem in South Africa. Right now, there's about 3 court cases that are sitting, that are litigating, claim, each person owning different parts of the song. Because when filmmakers when we make our film, like artists, we don't break down every single element. We don't take rights as a faculty like you do lighting, like you do makeup, like you do wardrobe. You need to have somebody that is purely dedicated to rights and IP when you do your film. And I've got some links that I can share with you later on. I've got some links on cheat sheets, like a checklist. So if you can't afford maybe to have somebody on site or on your project that is full-time, there's a checklist that you can have that asks you a question. Did you use any music? Did you use any legendary, any recognized faces, any folk tales? It will help you to identify the landmines, the potential IP issues that might come up later in your story. The story of the United Kingdom, our prince and the UK princess, it was told from a United Kingdom point of view. But we are yet to know the story of how Botswanas have actually commercialized that story. How the Botswanas have actually taken the revenue from that story that has been told, even though it's been told by a European producer. And the latest phenomenon I'll refer to is the piano phenomenon. We know pianos broken out across the world, from South Africa, across Africa and everywhere. Guess who's the first person to do a documentary on piano? It's a European producer. So these are examples that I'm making on how we own our narrative. So I was talking about the past, and now I'm talking about the present, and I'm making the example of piano. I'm saying, what is the piano of Botswana? What are the trends? What is the popular culture of Botswana? And one of the things that I picked up in Botswana, and I shared this with my colleagues yesterday, I used to come here 10 years ago or so. Botswana used to be such a vibey place. It used to be so full of life. We used to come here for parties. We used to come here for house parties. This is where the latest trends were. And 10 years coming back here, I'm feeling that the popular culture has kind of diminished. There's been a regression in the popular culture. And remember, filming is driven, and the global trends are driven by popular culture. It's driven by the aggression that comes from young people. It's driven by the resistance that comes from generations that have something to fight for. So what we seem to be missing, and we kind of discussed this briefly, is we're not picking up the fighting spirit in the Botswana young people, the fighting spirit in Botswana film. Because there must be some film that makes you want to do something now. Okay, what are Botswanas fighting for? So I've made some other examples like the Lucky Dube story, which are stories of legends. The Letambuli story. Who are the Lucky Dubes of Botswana? Who are the Letambulis of Botswana? Because I know that they are there. These are the stories that you can start with. And this one, I'm happy, one of the guy spoke about, I think he's gone now, the previous speaker from the previous on wildlife. Okay, this is Shando. He's a wildlife cinematographer. National Geographic is a billion-dollar industry, right? We all know that Europeans come from Europe, they come to Africa to shoot, and then they go back and bring us the channel. What are we doing as Botswana to actually capitalize on our wildlife? And it's the same conversation we're having in South Africa and the IP. So what we've done, and I'm closing, is we've come up with challenges. We've been deliberate as the Gauteng Film Commission. We're saying we're looking for various challenges that are going to help us with this in partnership with the Department of Arts, Culture and Recreation. But the two that I'm going to touch on are the last one, the Colors Room, which is about music, and the second one is the Book to Film Challenge. So the Colors Room is, we chose that because what we said is we looked at where the music industry is and where the film industry is, and we said for the film industry the music industry is light years ahead of the film industry, and where the music industry is now is where we want the film industry to be. Because if you look at your black coffees, if you look at, I just made an example of the piano movement, it's where we want to take our film industry. And what we said is we're going to marry our film and music industry. But the most important thing as well is that the music industry is even advanced in terms of copyrights industry, and my colleague Oke is going to speak on it, I hope so. She mentioned yesterday how Samro has gotten it so right. So, and I know even in Botswana you have the equivalent, I think it's your Bokra. With music, you can never get away with intellectual property violation. Because they have systems that track, they have crawlers, they have ways that track music. And they will know, even if your music is played in China, you will find out, you will know that your song has been played in China from South Africa. But film industry doesn't have those mechanisms yet, especially in South Africa. We don't have those mechanisms yet. And so what I encourage filmmakers to do, I always say, when you do a film and you have your scores and you try to at least have one song that you know is going to help you to track your film. Right? So always incorporate a score and always register the score because you know the music industry is efficient. So if your film is playing in some country, they might not pick up your film, but they'll pick up the music. Then you'll be able to see that this song was played on this date, and it will tell you, because when it comes to it will tell you this is the platform in which it was played, and you'll be able to tell that it was played on a television or your film was played. So those are some of the techniques, the winning strategies that filmmakers can use to actually mitigate against intellectual property violation. The book to film is the same concept. You said we're taking books that have been written, successful books that have been written by Gauteng citizens, and we're converting them to film because we know that it's easier for a book to sell as a concept than a fictional story. But also books have been registered, books have been published, books are licensed. So the moment when you go into Amazon or whatsoever, the moment that film plays, because of the title of the book, you will always be able to trace it. Whether somebody watched it in Bangladesh or wherever, you are able to trace it. And those are some of the strategies that filmmakers can implement. And so this is just a small promo. This is the last 2 promos that I'll play for you that we did for our Book to Film challenge.
Now, you have one thing to the international blockbuster. Participate in this kind of blockbuster challenge and your best blockbuster. Now, get ready. GFC is only looking for 25 blockbusters straight after this commission. So give us your best explosive stunts and action. And we get the GFC summit on the 19th to the 20th.
And this is the last one on music and film.
Join us for we discover something for the challenge. We are to get to try to make a program with our own. And then I get the government to work about the kind of food. We go up somewhere and we go up to the so the letter I mean we are dealing with in a car. That's the information said. Something is to come
Thank you. I'll end it there. That's our music and film challenge, and I do hope you are listening because at the end of this session we have some prizes to give and some questions to ask. So I hope you'll be able to answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Memo TV. So a lot of information came out, but I just want to pick one question that she was asking, even though she didn't ask it. She was asking, who is telling our stories? Think about it. Who is telling our stories? We are here, we want to understand how we can own our narratives. The narratives, the stories that we have about our own culture in Botswana, be it in Maum, be it in Kalahadi or Tuli Block, wherever it could be. Who is telling that story? Who are we waiting for so that they can tell that story? Why are we not telling it ourselves? So, we'll go into the panel discussion. the first question that I would like to ask, okay, let's talk about the issue of local content. A lot of musicians are very, very big on this one. Let's talk about filmmakers and local content. Why do we need local content? And how are they useful? Let's start with a man from Meonke.
Thank you. So I think she touched on it quite a lot in terms of, having your unsung heroes and defining who they are as a country. Because they touch, deeply on, just your local narrative as a whole. But it's important to understand that local content is nuanced, right? And there isn't just one face from Botswana. And even if you want to create content that has nothing to do with national heroes, that's also fine. In South Africa a couple of years ago, you would have remembered that one of the heads of the SABC, that thing, he kept on going on about how, you need to have more local content. And he was the laughing stock at the time. And he said, I want 90% local content on TV and on radio, and he was the laughing stock. And as much as, people were not necessarily a fan of him, he was really ahead of his time in saying that, because that is just the natural thing to do, right? If you're living in the States, the concept of local content doesn't exist, because their content is the only content in their mind that exists. It's global and local, right? So they don't think local content, we think local content because we still make a consideration for international content. So there's even an issue with that, because we shouldn't even be thinking about local content. We should just be saying content with the view that Botswana content is the content. Because that's the international, the thing is, there's nothing wrong from learning from international industries where it actually works, right? And whether we like it or not, Hollywood is the lead. America, as a country, does not work if Hollywood doesn't work. It doesn't work because Hollywood is its leading industry. So in South Africa, you have mining, you have agriculture, you have all of these things. In America, it's Hollywood. That's just a fact. So, and the thing is, what's helped them is the fact that they prize their content so centrally to everything. So even if you look at elections in a political way, American elections, their budgets, their campaigns are very heavy, they're very expensive, because they don't spend a lot of money. They do have events and town halls and whatever, but they don't spend a lot of their money on rallies. They spend it on productions, on campaigns. The campaigns are produced by filmmakers. They're not produced by advertising agencies. They're produced by filmmakers. Because there's that constant understanding that America's story, the greatness of America, America the Great, is always communicated through film, through content. It's always been that way, it's always going to be that way. Right? So local content is essential, right? But we also have to change the mind frame and shift. We shouldn't even be talking about it. It should just be content with an understanding that our content is globally relevant.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from the perspective of a broadcasting regulator. Mayor Marcel, your view on local content and the situation in Botswana currently?
Thank you very much. Local content is something that we are also very interested in at BOCRA. We've been having, initially when we licensed the existing radio stations, the initial licenses, there was zero, there was nothing. Even everything that was played was mostly from across the border. So we then set local content at 40% in order to encourage them to push the local market to produce and to create something. And because of that, it really assisted, because we ended up just fighting with the licensees, and here I'm talking about both radio and television. We pushed them until they got to a point where they were now able to reach 40%, not only to reach it, but to also exceed that 40%, because remember, we were starting from zero. And the minute we noticed that they have now started complying and exceeding the 40% which we set for them, we then last year revised from 40% to 55%. We're actually doing this on a glide path to say, fine, we can see that there's now a lot of local content that is produced. Yes, it might not be enough, it might not be to the standard that you're saying that you wanted, but what is that standard that you're talking about? Can you make it public? Can you make it accessible? Can you have it written down so that the producers know what it is that is expected of them and the quality that is expected of them? But still, that didn't prevent us from increasing the quota from 40 to 55%. So right now, the requirement, the majority of content that should be played is local content. And one thing that we've noticed is that, of course, like she was saying, we actually have rich content in the country, in Botswana. We also have rich talent. Now, I believe the only thing that is lacking is to marry the two, the platforms with the rich stories and the rich talent, because we have talented people who know how to tell our stories. And we've seen this, especially during the COVID era, where comedy just soured like we've never seen before. We knew that we have comedians, we knew that we had people who how to do that, but because they had platforms that allowed them to succeed during the time, we saw it really rising. Now, and the challenge there was that although it was going viral and it was growing, we were not able to monetize it. We were doing it for free. So much as we need to be telling our stories, we also need to be figuring ways of monetizing those stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe let's take it from the perspective of a rights management organization, Crossbots. BOCRA has done a lot of work, and I believe in collaboration with the organization as well as Ministry of Youth, Gender, Sport and Culture. The question is it working?
Thank you so much. To me, that's not the question. It's actually what are we going to do about what has been put in place. One thing I always tell creators in a forum like this, in any country, you need to be selfish of your heritage. You need to be selfish of your heritage. I'll make it simple. I'm not an avid TV watcher. I watch soccer, sport, rugby. But whenever I switch on the channels from the DSTV, the many channels that you see South Africans being told the South African way. Your Generations is an equivalent of The Bold and the Beautiful, but it's done the South African way. It's a South African narrative, it's a South African story. It's that selfish of how they behave in that country. It might be an emulation of The Bold and the Beautiful, but it looks the same to me. But it's a solely done the South African way. We need to be selfish of our heritage. Yes. Let's do our soapies done the Botswana way. Yes. Let's do our guns and bombs and what are done the Botswana way compared to the South Africans. Yizo is a very brutal and very, you know the story. It's the same as you see the American movies, but done the South African way. Your Zolas and everyone else. That is the thing. That is what local content means to the copyright society of Botswana. There was a point before BOCRA introduced what they're introducing, whereby we pay millions as a rights management. 70% of that money was flying outside. 70% going outside, 30% of that 70% going to South Africa, 50% going to the US and UK and Australia. But because of what we talk about local content, we have seen a huge spectrum of change. What has it done? We have seen now radio stations playing a lot of local music. A lot of it. I didn't know we had so much content and so much talent. Some songs have existed longer than we thought, but they are now being played because of the regulation that has been put together by BOCRA. That's been selfish of our local heritage. The South African industry is so bigger than Nigeria for my viewpoint, because it's clean, it's neat, and it's because multi-choice, which is based in South Africa, for Southern Africa, it's taking advantage of the creative market that is in place. So to me, that is what local content is. And we need to be selfish about it. We have a book writer who's written a story about Tsegedi Khama. Everyone in this room here, I believe, can take that script and turn that into a film. Your 3 chiefs. I've never seen a movie if it existed. I don't watch a lot of TV. 100 of you in a room. 5 of you can put together that, sponsored by our television, and we have a film that I can actually watch and be proud that I'm watching something that has been made in Botswana. That is what local content is all about.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to move on to the broadcaster now, and on to the issue of intellectual property. In your case, as you deal with filmmakers and you get content from them, what are some of the major contractual obligations that you find that it's not easy to navigate, it's not easy for filmmakers to understand, and so forth?
I would actually say we should look at it a different way.
Okay.
And I still want to agree with what he said, because local content is actually cultural preservation. And what I found with broadcasters, and this is why with our broadcasters, the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation, we work with local filmmakers, because we're sitting with the heritage, we're sitting with archives. And what we've done, what NBC does, especially over Christmas and public holidays, we take programs that was produced in 1990 for Czech, 1990, whenever, and we show them on television again, because it tells us where we come from. And filmmakers, you were born yesterday, you don't know what happened a couple of years ago. So by you working together with broadcasters, that is what's important. One thing that the NBC also does is that we go into a smart partnership with local, with filmmakers, and you get the revenue share of 60-40, 40-60. But one thing that we've also learned is that filmmakers want quick fix. They don't understand that putting something like what the panelists before us said is that it takes time. Take your time in doing it. They want to do it quick. And to push a proper and a brilliant product out there, you got to do the basics. So from a broadcaster's perspective, we work with the locals. We know we have a responsibility to grow the industry. It's a partnership. The filmmakers, what I also find is that they take it very personal. It's my rights, it's my thing. But what you don't understand is that we've got the knowledge and we've got the archives that you can build your story on. So it's working together, it's sharing information, it's building each other and making, and telling it as it is at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe let's take it to National Film and Video Foundation. And how do you deal with this contractual, sorry, I meant to say Gauteng Film Commission. Gauteng Film Commission. How do you deal with these contractual obligations that are there between the writers? Do you ever have any issues with them? Conflicts maybe that arise?
Because what we offer is a grant, just like the NFVF, but I think actually the NFVF might actually answer that better, because you even have recuperation clauses, right? So what we offer is just a grant. We don't even want ownership of your film. Whatever you do with it is up to you. But we are now working out a way to leverage our contracts, because we do realize that the grant system, it creates dependency, it creates entitlement, and we are also not giving filmmakers the opportunity to exercise their business muscle. But if I can give any
Yes.
So we, in our funding policy, which is one of the many policies we have, but it basically underpins how we do most of our work, we have a recoupment clause that basically says that the NFVF can recoup the full amount of the funding that they've given to you, right? In a space of about 1 to 2 years after you've finished your production, right? 2 years is probably more realistic. Bearing in mind the fact that you would have distributed the project and all of that. Now, the thing about recoupment is that, so when you sign the contract, right, it's something that you undersign to take, to say that at any point, after 2 years, once I finish my production, the NFVF could start asking for its money back, and it's not, we don't expect the money in one tranche. it will come in tranches based on what the filmmaker can afford, right? So because it's soft funding, recoupment is not done with an interest rate attached to it. It's literally we recoup exactly what we funded because it is soft funding. So unlike an African bank, which you mentioned earlier, they'll obviously attach a percentage rate to it, an interest rate to it, because obviously there's a profit margin that they're trying to make off of whatever they've lended to you, right? But the important thing is this, is that even though we can recoup the funds back, similar to GFC, we don't own the rights to the film, right? Because it's soft funding, it's taxpayers' money. It comes through us from taxpayers to the applicant who's applied for the funding. The thing is, though, is that when you are assigned to take that, you need to have, and by the way, we only recruit production funding. We don't recruit marketing and distribution. So whatever we fund for a film festival or a public screening, film market and festival attendance, we don't recruit that funding. It's only for production funding, fiction and non-fiction projects. So the fundamental thing to understand, though, is that the panel before on distribution was fundamentally important to this entire conversation, because your rights are attached to whatever you agree on in your distribution cycle, right? So traditionally, in South Africa, people would start the distribution conversation once you'd already finished your production. Not even in post-production, you're done, you're finished. Now you're looking for a distributor when it's too late, right? Which is why we even shifted our funding policy to give you grant funding. You can apply for funding at script stage. Once you're in development, now you can start engaging distributors, right? And making sure you get the right deals. It's important for you to have that conversation up front with distributors, because like I'm saying, that is when the conversations around IP become important. That's when you have to start onboarding an entertainment lawyer, right, to assist you with that. She spoke earlier about, you know, it being part of your budget for funding. And even if it's something that you won't, because of the timing of your funding, you won't be able to include it in your budget, there's nothing wrong with you actually paying for it out of your own pocket. The good thing about appointing an entertainment lawyer, right? Whether you pay them on a retainer or you pay them for the work that they do on a once-off basis, is that it gives you skin in the game on the project, and that's very important. So in Botswana, you guys are actually at a very, even though you don't have a grant system set up, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's giving you an opportunity to avoid the situation of becoming really overly dependent on grant systems, where you forego the process of engaging entertainment lawyers and putting skin in the game, putting your own money, right, into the project up front, even if it's not in the production cycle. Because this portion, right, getting in bed with the distributor, understanding the rights attached to the project, is more important than anything else. Because you can produce a really great film, but if you screw yourself over, it's very difficult to come back from that, you know. So you would rather spend more time in the beginning phases while you're still in development of the project. You get into an agreement with a distributor, whether it's AAA Entertainment, Indigenous, Gravel Road, right? Any of the distributors we have, the other ones that I just didn't mention. You get into an agreement of what the distribution deal would be. Would there be any IP split in terms of your project? So that you understand going forward, you know, what's in it for you in the long run.
I really want to go ahead with that conversation, but time is not on our side now. And thank you very much for being that elaborate. But I want to go back to the issue of chain of title. You've just mentioned it, and I don't know at what level, because broadcasters just get a fully fledged, a complete project. I don't know if Cospots, on the other hand, we have a weight to see on this, the issue of chain of title, who owns what. Do you ever have any issues, particularly from the film sector?
No, thank you so much. There are about 10 contracts involved in the film, in essence, and it's in the law. It's in the law. We can, beat around about it. What is important in a film is for everyone involved to have a contract, in whatever shape or form. Everyone involved. In the EU there was a case, I think a few months back when I was in Iceland. It so happened that they avoided to tell someone in a flat that close your windows were filming. So the lady happened to be by the window and the film is really big. She sued them over $2 million just because no contract and lack of information. So when it goes to the broadcaster also, we have had issues whereby people come and complain, the broadcaster is knocking us off. It's also a matter of contract and understanding the worth of what you're actually giving them. From our point, when we license the broadcaster, they're only supposed to keep one copy, even if they're reproducing it in their systems. One copy, that's it. Any multiple copies, there's a license that they have to pay to the Copyright Society of Botswana. They're only supposed to show it once without getting a license. Any whatever you call them, contracts, re-shows, whatever they do, omnibuses, you name them, we charge them as a Copyright Society of Botswana. And the broadcasters are well aware of that. But we have also found that you also, like she has said, you want things to happen quick. So what do? You go to the Department of Broadcasting Services, Now TV, UPIC, MyPlay, all of them, and you relinquish all your rights. Broadcasters are not supposed to own a single cent. They have a broadcasting right that is espoused in the Berne Convention and 200 old law. That's all they have, broadcasted. Unless they were involved as funders, whereby now they have there's supposed to be an executive production contract or some sort, because as a funder now, we are part of the project. But other than that, the limitations of authority are very important to what you tell a broadcaster to do and not to do. And they have to pay for everything that they do. That is with outside, sending one copy of reproduction, 2, showing it once. Any other time, the Copyright Society will knock, and we will get the money and make sure that the money arrives in our pockets.
Right. Maybe that now that he has included you in the conversation, perhaps you have a comment just so that the filmmakers here get rested on that issue.
Look, I'm in between because I'm a filmmaker by heart, right? And I work for a broadcaster, so I'm in between a rock and a hard place. As the broadcaster, because you're in a hurry, they're going to screw you. They're going to it's like taking sweets away from a child. Go back to basics, know what you're talking about. With us, for instance, the copyright, if you've done the production and you want us to broadcast it, we will do a revenue share 60-40, and that's purely with marketing. The copyrights belong to you. However, we will give you a clause and say that we've got rights to rebroadcast this program for the next 5 years, but we're only going to pay you. That are the creme de la creme of the industry within in Africa, and the Nigerians. How is it being done? But because we, as filmmakers, we need to get paid. We want to get paid. I want my story to be told. You give away your intellectual property and you don't even know it.
Thank you very much. We have 10 minutes before I allow the participants to give us something. But I would like to ask just one question before one of the panelists is running to another panel that side of the road. The issue of alternative dispute resolution in terms of where filmmakers have disputes and they don't actually have the money to go to court. As you know, how long courts can take. They can take their own time, and maybe also touch on the issues of WIPO mechanisms by World Intellectual Property Organization, and even CIFA, if you are able to do that.
Thank you so much. I think first and foremost, creators need to know that they are protected by a law that is close to 200 years old. That is the first thing you need to know. Know that law like the back of your hand. It's just 20 pages. Then 2012, there was a law specifically designed for filmmakers. at the international stage, United Nations body called the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. Then in Botswana, we have our law. Those are the 3 laws you need to know, first and foremost, everything else. Then you have the Copyright Society of Botswana. Ours were very selfish because I get paid by your money. Nothing more, nothing less. For every cent that I collect for you, pay my salary, which means I'm going to do everything to protect your rights. We give you contracts. We have contracts, I think 5 of them in one of the books that we have in our office, for every single thing that you need to know. When there's a dispute resolution, the first question we'll ask you as Copyright Society, have you registered your work? Registering your work does not make it that is not original. That's the first thing. It don't actually only protects you in case whereby something happens. And something is always going to happen when there's a lot of money involved. So as soon as your work is done, go register it with the Companies and Intellectual Property Authority, which means your work will be an international database. We have people now whose works have been used in Spain and everywhere else, and we are able to get money for them. The Sarsakama thing we actually learned from Archidua that is being used in Europe. We will be able to get money for that. Registration, that's what it actually protects you. It also helps you in the future because you are going to have to bring contracts into place. As big or as small as your contracts are very important. So when there's a dispute resolution, and Cosmos cannot help you, we are not the police. First and foremost, that's what people do. We are not the police. We believe that what you tell us is gospel truth. When now start things go all bad, that means you have to go to court. It's a case, it's a fraud. They stole from you. It's a police case. It's a law theft. Now you go back to CIPA because they've got an arbitration that actually now sorts this kind of things. When you feel now that the Companies in Charge of Property Authority, CIPA does not help you, this is why the WIPO Arbitration Center exists for, whereby artists, creators, sue governments, sue corporations, sue almost everyone. Like the laws are not designed for cosbots or for companies. That's why we call them authors' laws. The laws are designed for authors. So in those cases, we will always advise you get your contract in place. When there's an issue, you are protected. You can take it as far as you can at WIPO in the United Nations, and you will get a reprieve for whatever has been done wrong to you.
Okay, thank you.
May I
Thank you
please
very much.
add?
Yes.
May I please add? Also very important is non-disclosure agreements. The minute when you have your intellectual property and you go and spin it to whoever, wherever, please make sure you can download a non-disclosure agreement from the internet. Before you spin your idea to anybody, make sure that they sign a non-disclosure agreement, because in this industry we say we beg, borrow and steal. Somebody will steal your idea. Protect yourself, always.
Thank you very much. I'm smiling because as an IP consultant, I usually face such issues where people just download NDAs over the internet and then they don't apply here because our laws, IP is territorial. And because people don't want to pay consultants, don't want to pay lawyers, they simply want to take shortcuts. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. So, but going to the last, I think you are excused, but going to the very, very last, your last word regarding what we just discussed, your last word, and just 30 seconds. Each of us will do that.
Never stop dreaming and understand that the sky is the limit. And as filmmakers, we have a story to tell. Keep telling those stories and don't allow yourself to be limited. If one door closes, another one will open. You just gotta keep on pushing and relax. Take it easy. Young people, you are too quick. There's no instant gratification when it comes to storytelling, because the story needs to be developed and it needs to be grown, but don't ever stop. And don't allow anybody to tell you to be quiet, to back off, because it's too difficult.
Thank you very
Keep
much.
pushing.
Thank you very much.
Mine would actually be on what she touched on. I like the part where she was talking about us having, or maybe even regressed from having that fighting spirit. Because you find that other sectors, it doesn't matter whether it's labor or tourism, or they fight for their sectors. And we know that, well, perhaps from the creative space, we're not really fighters. We're more into bringing peace even within the country and building people. but specifically for the sector, maybe it's about time we change gears and do fight for the sector. And right now there are different funding models for different projects within the country. Maybe we should also be looking into that to see if there's ways we can maneuver, because much as sometimes we find that even CEDA would say there was a time there was money, they were sort of, I don't want to say splashing out, but they were ready to fund different projects. So even if it doesn't say for the creative sector or the entertainment sector, let us find ways of just seeing how we can maneuver and be able to also grab our piece of the cake while we're still waiting for certain specific funds for our own sector.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to continue with that, to say that the film comprises part of the fifth estate. It's the watchdog of any country. And the filmmaker's responsibility is not to swim and sing to the tune of the authorities. There's a big story happening right now in Botswana. And the filmmakers of Botswana are the ones who are supposed to be telling us that story. They're the ones that are supposed to be the first to see that there's a story here that needs to be told. And freedom of speech does not mean compromising your cultural values. If you look at Bollywood, you look at Nollywood, which is the Nigerian film industry, they've gone so far, and they've created so many great films with the support of their government, without the support of the government. But one thing that's common in those industries, they've not compromised their values. You'll never see a single sex scene in Bollywood or in Nollywood. You'll never hear a swear word. You'll never hear anything untoward. So we need to separate the two. We need to separate the issue of values and the issue of censorship.
Thank you very much.
And we need to be able to differentiate the two as filmmakers and fight for the freedom of speech.
Thank you very much.
So I first just want to touch on what you mentioned, which was NDAs, which is so crucial, and I'm so grateful that you mentioned it. NDAs, guys, are absolutely fundamentally important. One thing that is always consistent is that filmmakers will always come up to me, and some of us, I can imagine on the panel, this is the idea that I have, I want to do a film about this, about this, about this. And I was actually having a conversation with someone yesterday, and I was saying, you know, try not to give too much away about what you're trying to do. Because you might be in a position where you are pitching it, you're selling the idea to someone who's very powerful, at a broadcaster, at a distribution agent, or whatever, and next thing you're going to see your idea there on TV, or you're going to see it in the cinema. Even at a film festival, if you are in a closed pitch, you are pitching to a closed pitch, do you know that you actually have the right to ask everyone who is listening to your pitch to sign an NDA? You can't do that. It's done in international film festivals. It's a standard thing. So there's no NDAs and protecting your story. Don't think that it's restricted to certain environments. Take your concepts as seriously as you take yourself as a filmmaker, right?
Thank you very much. Okay, just complete that thought.
Okay, thank you. And then I did want to say that you know, you also have to think in terms of IP as how much you can protect the overall brand of your film. So you can produce a film that will produce the actual content, right? Whether it's a film that you see in a cinema or in a streamer or on TV or whatever the case is. It can come with other things. It can come with merchandise, right? It can come with so many other things that are line extensions of the brand of that film. You see it a lot in animations, you see it a lot in Disney, and a lot of content, a lot of films that are geared towards kids, where it's not just the film, it's the toys, it's the t-shirts, it's the toys, it's all of those things attached to it. There is IP attached to that as well. There is passive income in it for you as a filmmaker who is the owner of the original story of it, right? You have the rights to all of those original formats and ideas. So also think of IP beyond the actual film. Think of it in a way, ultimately, that will create passive income for you, when you are not necessarily on a production set, right? So think of it in terms of something that will protect you. It's almost like an insurance policy, right? It's something that is going to protect you, that is going to generate passive income from you and prevent you ultimately in the long run from always having to be on a set. So when she was talking about do not always be in a hurry, she's 100% correct. Get the right things right first. Spend time, right, understanding exactly what you're signing yourself up to. Rather build a proper foundation, because in the long run, you're going to be very thankful for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So in my line of work, intellectual property, we say the writer is king. What does a king do? A king is a custodian of a community's culture. But as a filmmaker, as a film writer, why are you a king? Because if you are a writer, much of the finances that will accrue out of that film will go to you as a result of intellectual property. So, we are here. We have only 15 minutes for questions. And we are not going to take all the 15 minutes because my panelists have questions as well for you. So, there's one here, okay. There's number one there, the one on the other side. Number one, number two, number three, number four, and number five. We get those. Oh, there's 61 element. Okay, 7. Okay. All right.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
My question is to the distributing companies from Gauteng and Namibian Broadcasting Commission. That if we come with local sponsored content, like if the content is locally sponsored, can we just submit unsolicited to the Namibian Broadcasting Commission or the Gauteng Film Commission, if I say it right?
Thank you, sir. Let's keep
Yeah, I'm keeping it short. And one more thing, one more important thing that I raised up my hand for. We have a problem in our film industry, and to have this platform is nice. Local film producers, companies, and all, we are in a race but a competition. We can't be one. Like Ma'am was saying there from Gauteng Film Commission, she was, the other lady, she was talking about our content being, our local content being a content to global distributors and global platforms. So I would propose something to the president. Please, anybody who is interested to work with us or what I'm doing, please see me after this.
Okay, right.
Afternoon, everybody. Thanks all, very insightful discussion. Kudos to the organizers, the ministries for picking the right people with the right content, the right experience. A quick one, probably to Onke and Nano, specifically.
Let me just protect you a little bit. You can go ahead.
Within corporate, or business or corporate, when you talk about funding, it's easy for me to, I consider myself more on the business side than the creative. So it's easy for me to conceptualize when a client comes in. If a project is infrastructure, I know where to get funding. If I have to blend it, if it has to be a triple P or government or business and stuff like that. So my question is, within the film industry, to be able to break even quick enough, or for it to be easier to sell and be profitable, what is the best practice? What is the best model to do? Is it grant, half grant, 30% grant, and an investment loan, or a blend of the two? Because that then speaks to your break-even point. If some of the funds within your budget was a grant, then it becomes easier. You need probably even within the population in Namibia and Botswana, then you can survive. If it's purely an investment loan, then that's where you have a bit of an uphill battle where you have to find the numbers to do that.
Just keep it short.
Yeah, and then, so that's the first question. Then the other question is, or a request from the panel is to provide with us possibly a comprehensive list or so of potential funders or financiers in the space that we can then speak to or go towards. Lastly, on the South African panel or Onke, is your mandate only purely South African, or you have an African context where we can approach you and you're able to fund or you get involved outside the country?
Thank you, sir. That was the last one. Let's have the lady.
Hi everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Mosadua Tutopel David from Creative Cactus. Okay. Yes, we have a film division called Active Films. My question is to Memo. You spoke about the book to film challenge. In Creative Cactus, we believe in cultural heritage and preservation. All our work, even you check our website, creativecactus.com, creative with an 8. You will see everything we've done, TV, film, digital. We are an interactive agency. So I wanted to know, was it a suggestion that we do this, or is there a platform where we can actually, because we have tons of projects that are based on books by Botswana, written in Setswana, in Sehera, in Sekalaka, in Sesa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's have there was a hand here. Yes. There is a hand there.
Hello, ladies. My name is Afenze Fenilo Kurane. I am currently working on a film called Anafiki. A few of you saw it yesterday. And I think in the country we've had like 2, if I'm not wrong, international films, but they were produced obviously by international producers. And right now I sort of like need mentoring or someone to just hold my hand, but they are all gone. Like you're saying, we need to be telling our own stories. So I wanted to ask from NABF, if I got it right, and Gauteng Film Commission, I'm here in Botswana, how can you help me? Not just financially, but even with issues of helping me from the beginning and pre-production all the way up to distribution. Because my intention obviously is to actually create a reference film where we are not talking about those 2 filmmakers who were from the international market, but we need to be talking about a film that is done by Botswana for Botswana to the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you come this side to this gentleman there? Sorry? Can we get to this number 4?
I'm heading that way. Okay. Can I get to
No. We had an agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I keep my promises.
Thank you.
For keeping the promise or for something else?
For both.
What I think.
And for coordination. My name is Tumelo Bohatu. I run a creative think tank that works as a consortium to bring creative minds together to build such systems, creative systems. So my question is to Nano and Onke, and basically it's an advice, hopefully also to our ministry. In terms of your research and reaching local communities, how do you make sure that it is as inclusive as possible? Because I'm a creative strategist. I've went to Bokra, I've went to government, and proposing terms in which we could work together. And it is very hard to get a commission to start working hand in hand to say how do we build these creative systems together. And normally you get consultants being called from outside the country to come and talk on cultural issues which are more relevant to the people in the industry. So I just would like you guys to maybe share how you guys work with your local communities. Thanks.
Okay. There's a gentleman here. And then there will be the last one.
Hello, my name is Amen Gule. I'm an author.
Yes, sir.
So actually, I it's not opinion, it's not a question. It's Nano. She was talking about freedom of speech. And earlier on we had, I'm not good with names, there is another director, he was actually there by the stage talking about the fact that he was actually at the Naka and presenting a film there, and they were saying he must take out some lines. So I as a writer, I'm aware that in a story there's a dark side and a light side. So what makes the story nice is both of them be together. So in actual fact, in our country here, I think we are actually driven by Ubuntu. So whereby it's good, it's a good thing. But most of the people, most of the certain movies I've noticed is where the dark side and the light are both together. So I'm just hoping that we can actually maybe talk to our government or our finances to be aware of such. So we can actually be able to present our culture out there, not be limited.
Thank you, sir. The last one at the back.
My name is Wakani Tokwa. I have 3 questions here. The first one.
My God, 3. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Sir?
Go ahead with the questions.
Thank you. The first one is determining the duration in terms of intellectual property rights. That is, when it comes to streaming, when you license your product to a streaming platform, how do you determine the duration? Because with traditional broadcasters, it's going to be the first run and the second run or third run. But then when it comes to streaming, how do you determine that? And then there's also, second one, the issue of the 40% local content. I think this 40% has some degree of distortion, looking at the fact that when you look at the local television stations, particularly our government-run station, most of the time they are broadcasting conferences. So if you are broadcasting a conference or an event that runs for 3 hours or so, and then it's an event after event, you should also be thinking about what percentage of that content comes from the local producers. So that's a major worry or concern to the local producers, because it's just written that we have the 40% local content, but it doesn't really help much in terms of helping the local producers to contribute to the production of local content. Yes. The last question is directed to NVF and Joburg Film. Together, of course, with Namibian Broadcasting, I would like to know whether you have predetermined cycles for commissioning, because I think this helps the producers and the directors to plan and also budget for their films, instead of the situation that we see in our country, where there are tenders that come without even any warning. The local producers, because a tender is floated and you are told within 2 weeks it will be closing. So how do you plan for such? And this is creative economy planning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see a lot of questions leaning somewhere else. And there's one person that I want you to ask a question. Is there anyone who wants to ask NBC a question? Anyone who wants to ask Namibian Broadcasting Corporation, a question? Going once, twice? Ah. Yeah, you can ask me. Okay, let's have that one. Right.
I don't want to ask a lot on what they say, but it's a sort of suggestion I've been thinking of. From what I've been hearing them say about the NGAs. Wouldn't it be better if someone has to shoot a short film or a feature film, then approach potential investors to turn into a blockbuster, because that way you show effort and will, instead of waiting for people to say, because it shows you've been something you've been willing to do for a long time. You shot it yourself. It's a script you've been developing for a long time, because scripts don't take 2 weeks. So this thing of NGs, I don't really sit well with it. So is it better to just shoot a short film, feature film, and approach possible investors in the future? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. You got that one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm just going to answer the ones posed to me. So the first one is, what's the best way to break even? So typically what happens in South Africa is that people get money from different sources, right, filmmakers. So they'll approach the NFVF, they'll approach the DTIC, the IDC, sometimes even the NEF, right, for funding, and then they'll also approach the film commissions based on where they've filmed it. So it's either GFC or KZN. It can also be both, right, if they've shot in both provinces. So that typically comprises then what would be the full budget of the film. Then you also have obviously instances where people have private investors. In terms of breaking even, it all depends on the distribution strategy, right? Ultimately. So if you, which is part of your submission to get the grant funding, you need to have an idea as to which target audience you're targeting. In other words, where is this going to go? Is it targeted towards a streamer such as a Netflix, or is it more of an Amazon type of project? Or are you leaning more towards the SABC? What is your, or do you want to just stream it within, or showcase it within traditional theatres, right? So it all depends on the distribution strategy, and it's much easier to determine that when there is already a relationship with a distribution agent, right? So AAA and Indigenous, because that then helps you figure out, right, how you are going to make profit off of that project. When you go it alone in traditional theatres, it becomes more difficult, especially if you're a first-time filmmaker of a feature. It's a harder sell. They don't know you. They don't know what you have, you know, the success rate that you've done before. And maybe you have had a film. You've produced films before that, but they haven't necessarily done as successfully as they could have in traditional theatres because you were going it alone as an independent filmmaker, and there wasn't a distribution agent attached. So a lot of filmmakers are averse to getting in bed with distribution agencies because they think, oh, they're going to take some of my money and whatever. But you know, she said it before. She was like, you know, collaboration. You have to, like, if you really want to make this thing work for you in the long run, a distribution agent is critical towards you getting this project over the line profitably. Because ultimately, if anything, there's a strategy of thought put behind that process and getting that film profitable, right? So you always have to ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? If you want to be happy, you are going to get yourself in a proper conversation with a distribution agency and weigh the benefits and the costs of what the various plans are. Sometimes there's too much of a focus of getting films into different festivals, and that's also fine if you are, you know, if it's particularly an art house film. It's also fine to really have that focus, but that is not going to get you a film. That's not necessarily the ultimate strategy towards having a commercial film, right? If anything, you would rather limit your film to very, very key festivals and focus more on just the visibility of it, getting eyes on the project, as many as possible, be it through theatres, be it through a streamer, whatever the case is. So if you go the route of a streamer, then in terms of profitability, it's a lot more obvious, a lot quicker, because obviously they give you the money up front, right? So then you can have, you could have applied to funding from the NFVF, and then Netflix typically wants to take over the full project, right? So sometimes people even give us the money back, right? Sometimes then, so sometimes, typically speaking, they give the money back. So, but then Netflix then would take on the full cost of the project, the marketing, the take care of all of that stuff. So your profitability would purely be dependent on the money they give you now. So it's a nice short-term solution because it's a lot of money now, not necessarily, but you're still going to lose out in the future because obviously the licensing and all of that, they're on that. So it depends which route you want to go. The theatrical route is the traditional one, not necessarily as popular now with streamers, but there's a reason why Beyonce is releasing her film in theaters in December, and she's done with streamers. There's a reason why in China they're building theaters every month. They're building up the volume of theater. There's a reason why in Nigeria there's someone who's just built the biggest cinema screen on the continent. So theaters, yes, they're traditional, but there is definitely a comeback that's happening because of the focus of content on the from the continent, right? And traditional theaters, I would think, as an independent producer, if you were an independent producer, it's actually a better strategy in the long term for you. So that's just the one thing. And then in terms of do we work with, sorry, I just want to get your question right. So do we work outside of South Africa? So we do have co-productions. They're under treaties that we have with the various countries. With Nigeria and Kenya, we have them with our sister agencies, right? So we don't have them with the country. It just takes too long. We would never end up having a co-production treaty for film because of all of the challenges on the continent politically. It's just not worth it. So, but what you can do is if you can apply to funding from the NFF if it is a film that is co-produced in Botswana, right? You can approach the NFF for funding for the portions of the film that is shot in South Africa, right? The film doesn't have to be under a Botswana-South Africa co-production treaty or agreement because we don't have one yet. You don't have to wait for that. We have funded films that were partly shot in South Africa and partly shot in other regions of the continent. So that's also applicable provided that, right? There's the South African component, that's what we take care of, right? And then, how do we help as the NFVF? So to the lady in the cap, so there's a number of internships that we do. So the NFVF, we run quite a big internship program, not within the organization, but within different production companies and studios. So Trey Studios, Urban Brew, we've placed so many interns there over the years. We pay a portion of the stipend and we share it with the MITSITA, which is an organization in South Africa. And so there's that one component, but that's limited to South African production companies. However, there is the Multi-Choice Talent Factory, which we do have a partnership with. We have put some interns there. The nice thing about Multi-Choice is that they are continental, right? So Multi-Choice Talent Factory is an amazing program where it's basically like a year incubation program where you learn everything across the board. Directing, producing, script writing, all of those things. If you want to be a cinematographer, it's a full-scale program. We have slates, youth filmmakers, slates, female filmmakers, but these things, like I said, they're limited to South Africa. I'm just making you aware of the different programs that exist. I think the best one fit for you would be the Multi-Choice Talent Factory. It's definitely something I would apply for if you wait for the call that's open next. You're not a youth. Okay, so that's a different story. Okay, your skin is great. Your black is not cracking anytime soon. But I think then rather than have a conversation afterwards, and then I'll see what I can do because I'm not going to lie here and say, oh, I'll definitely mentor you or whatever. But there are people that perhaps would be better placed to kind of assist you. We've recently done PSP. And what we included actually was a mentorship program for a lot of the people that were first-time producers of films. So I think what the best thing to do would be to partner you up with one of those producers who was keen on mentoring some of the producers that were funded under that program, because you want someone who's been there before, who's done it, who knows what they're talking about, right? I've been in the production space before. I know what it's like to be a production sweat, but I'm not a producer, right? So if you want to have that kind of assistance, you need someone who has been there before and has walked the journey. So I can help connect you with those people. They're based in South Africa, but hey, you can go to SA, you know, you never know. And then researching with local communities, the gentleman was asking. So we do quite a number of roadshows, right? So we look at South Africa in terms of the 9 provinces that we have, and we separate them. So Gauteng, KZN, and the Western Cape we deem as service provinces. They have film commissions, there's structures in place, there's dedicated funding towards filming in those provinces. It's just a better setup for a filmmaker. You have a lot of filmmakers who move from your other provinces to those service provinces for work, right? And then you have your underserviced provinces, so Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Northwest, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, the Free State. Those provinces then are provinces that we focus on quite a lot in terms of community communication and outreach. I hate to say the word outreach because no one's asking for a handout, right? But what we do is we do roadshows throughout the year, where we talk about the different funding calls that are available, and to do that kind of really proper qualitative and quantitative research in the different provinces, depending on what the research that we have, depending on what we want to do. Then we work with all of the film federations, so your SASFed and all of those federations in South Africa. We have quite a number of stakeholder engagements with them, and whenever we participate at film festivals, especially internationally, we always touch base with our key stakeholders, which are your film commissions, and we always make sure that we plan to participate together as a unified South Africa front. So the community engagement is tiered, right? We don't see it as one thing. It depends on what we're trying to do, and then that's how we approach it. But the most effective way is through the roadshows that we do. I think there's one more, sorry. Do we have predetermined cycles for commissioning? So we don't commission content, to the gentleman at the back. It's a grant funding process, right? So you have to apply for the funding for whatever you want, a film, a feature film, animation, a documentary, a film festival, whatever it is. We do have it cyclically, right? So we have 4 cycles in the year, but typically speaking, the funds will then get used up by the end of the 3rd cycle, right? Sometimes with production funding, which has the biggest bulk of the pot, because of the high demand, they will probably release a call once a year. So it's not necessarily, they'll release it once a year, and then at the tail end of the year, they'll release another call for special projects. So projects that are focused on specific stories. Some, last year we did special projects to focus on stories produced by the queer community, by the community in the Northern Cape. So really just very special calls that typically wouldn't necessarily get applied for funding as easily through the overall funding call because of experience and all of these things that usually become gatekeepers when it comes to actually getting the funding. But when it comes to marketing, film festival production, film festival funding, you want to do a film festival, we have 3 cycles for that call, right? You want to do a public screening, we have between 1 to 2 cycles. You want to attend a film festival, locally or international, we literally release a call every month just because of the frequency of film festivals that exist. When it comes to production funding, there's a critical call that we release in about February of each year that then will tail into the new financial year, which starts at the beginning of April. And that is, you can't miss that call because there might not be another one if there isn't other money available. So that's how we basically time it out, and they go according to our financial year and how it's spaced out. Our financial year begins in April and it ends on the 31st of March of the following year.
Okay, we are really pressed for time, and there are some people who are not looking at me nicely, so I would like to avoid that going forward. Yes, let's go ahead.
I'll be quick because Omar has already covered most of what, because we work in a very similar way, except that she's national and provincial. So, but I think what I'll encourage everyone to do is just follow NFVF and follow GFC socials, because all the calls, all the information is on our websites, gautengfilm.org.za, nfvf.org.co.za. We also have a .co.za version. So if you can't remember, just remember gautengfilm.co.za, and then follow us on Instagram, because all these things that she's mentioning, we post them, and then put on your notifications so that if there's new information, especially a call out, you are able to pick it up. Because as she's mentioned, we also do funding. If you have a film that's shot in Gauteng, a certain aspect of it, so maybe not 100% of the film, but a minimum of 60% must be shot in Gauteng, then we will fund you for that 60% because we take it as a collaboration. But the other thing is we have MOUs, we have an MOU with KZN, and one of the things that we would have liked is to start talking MOUs, because I'm not sure if we have a bilateral. So NFVF operates at bilateral level. We work at an MOU level. So we are able to also have an MOU with Botswana so that we are able to do the collaboration projects together in a more frameworked manner. So that's one of the reasons that we're here. So, but what also we'll post on our website, I'm going to post the cheat sheet. So that's the legal and IP cheat sheet for if you can't afford a lawyer but you need something to help you, guide you. A standard cheat sheet. I'm also going to post the list of funders on the website, so you can get it there. Then the Book to Film Challenge, it will be open, but under the auspices of the 60/40 that I've just mentioned, and we're opening it up as soon as we've wrapped up the planning for it. The first one, in terms of breaking even, what I've noticed and what I've heard most filmmakers say that we've spoken to, when it comes to streaming, usually the first run is for breaking even. Then the second run is profit, right? Same with theater. So mostly with theater, they'll say the first run, the cinematic run, is breaking even. Then the DVD and the other spin-offs, that's then the profit. So I think that's just the high level way of doing it. So mostly if you get a license, they will negotiate you for 2 runs. Like the guy was saying that you only, the contract you sign is for 1 run. The moment they ask for a second run, that's when now you are pushing for your profit. And that is why even them, they will want for 2 runs, because even for them, their first run, they know that they're breaking even. So that's how it usually works. And advertiser, okay, you asked about if you've done a program and you want to take it and commission it. So that we call advertiser funding program. So I'm not sure if the SAPC still works, but I think it does actually. So what we have is we have commissioned, which is solicited, and every year or every other time they'll take out a solicitation, a call for solicited content, which is content that they've called for. But they can also have unsolicited content. Part of unsolicited content is the content that you approach the broadcaster, right? Within the unsolicited content, part of it is what's called advertiser-funded programs. So it's when you've already done your production, and then you say to them, I'm not asking you to commission or to commission my content. I've already shot it. I just want you to broadcast it. And because you've already covered the cost, then your negotiation there is the revenue around that content. So maybe you might have sponsors, you might have product placements on it or whatever, that's where your revenue will come from that. But there is definitely an option for that. And a lot of people that just do their own programming, they go with it. But you make sure that you get the specs. You do that with the broadcaster in mind. So you understand what are the specs of the broadcaster that you're targeting. If you're targeting modular or DSTV, which would require HD, the project to be shot in HD with a specific aspect ratio, certain regulations around product placement, you check what the aspects, so that when you do your program, you customize it to the platform. Otherwise, if you can't do that, maybe you didn't think, you thought of it as an afterthought. What they do is they usually run it through their QA department, which is the quality assurance department. They'll literally view the whole thing and they'll tell you the things that you either need to take out, things that are not age restricted and this and that, or you might even have to do some pickup shoots. So you can then repurpose it, or you can do it for one broadcaster. When you take it to the next broadcaster, you repurpose it for that broadcast. So that's where things like subtitles come in, lip syncing comes in. What are the other things? Maybe changing the title, like the Fixer was Scandal in America, but when it came to South Africa, we changed it to the Fixer because there were licensing issues and so on. So the broadcaster will guide you. And they like content like that because you've already spent, and they're looking for local content. So you've already taken that burden off them of spending on local content. Then all you need to do is to negotiate the revenue. I hope I didn't miss anything but Onke's covered it. If not, I'm happy to take questions outside.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for that question and comment on the issue of local content quotas. What I was saying is actually that the content quota is at 55%. It was initially 40, but has been revised to 55. And you did mention that we need to look at the makeup of what really makes the local content, as we've seen on television or radio stations. I must indicate that at BOCRA, we actually regulate the private sector, the private entities. So most of these broadcasters are mostly pipes or platforms which don't produce their own content. If it's radio, mostly it will be music. So they don't do in-house productions. So when you talk about local content, you know that it's basically mostly from outside producers. We also regulate private television as well, like your multi-choices, your YTV and stuff, because within the Communications Regulatory Act, Section 31 basically exempts a department that is dedicated for broadcasting from regulation. So BTV, your BTV or your Radio Botswana or RB2 would not be. But I must say, they're actually doing way better than us in terms of local content, because I understand that they are at, is it 80 or 90%, somewhere similar to it's 80%. Yeah, so they are definitely doing better than us as DBS. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I just wanted to add on the local sponsored content. One thing you must also just remember, if you bring in a product, your content, and your content has got sponsors in your content, the broadcaster might even ask you to pay them to put your program on air. Just keep that in mind, and also be very conscious when you put a program together with regards to product placement. Sometimes, I mean, there's like alcohol, you're not allowed to show alcohol. I don't know, in Namibia it is, but we're not allowed to show alcohol in cigarettes on air. So if you've gone and you've shot and you've made a clinched deal with gin, and now you want us to put a gin, we most probably would, but we will charge you. So just be conscious about that. The question with regards to the NDA, it goes back to, again, the choice is yours. Go ahead and shoot your thing and bring it in and we put it on air. The reason why I mentioned the NDA is to protect you. And I know with filmmakers, we are radical. Yes, we don't listen to rules. We break the boundaries, you know. Yeah, I know that. But we are here to guide you, to give you input, you know, just to tell you what to do to protect yourself. If you want to be radical, please go ahead, go and do what you need to do. Don't sign NDAs because you think it's not important. In the long run, you will feel it. You're going to get hurt. You're going to burn yourself.
Okay. So we are here. I don't see those people who are looking at me with those eyes. So I'll take this opportunity to say thank you very much for being a good audience. Just to the last point, in the world of IP, you cannot do anything without non-disclosure agreement. You cannot. That is the reason why we have people talking about SEDA, banks, government department taking our ideas and all that and all that. Because in the midst of us being excited and being happy with our ideas, we just give them away without realizing. A non-disclosure agreement is very, very important. To show you the importance, every time when somebody comes to our office and say, we have a challenge, we would like you to help us with this, I sign a non-disclosure agreement. Just before, not even before I see that, before I see that whatever he or she is carrying, I have to do that, such that I protect myself and that person also, because to sign non-disclosure agreement. Because CESA deals with what? Multi-international companies. People who understand that what they have cannot be taken by another person. Because intellectual property is all about exclusion. If you are my competitor, I need to exclude you from the market. That's it. If I'm not able to do that, then it means I'm not going to be getting the kind of money that I want. On the other hand, having asked all those 7 questions, 8 questions, we forgot about one important aspect, the issue of owning our narratives. It means our minds are somewhere else, but let's bring them back and understand, why is it that other people in positions of power or being CEOs of other companies, big companies, say the story of Tswele, the story of Dimo are nonsensical? When those stories deal with business strategy, when those stories deal with business management ideas, because we are here and we are not giving the significance of those stories that they deserve. So at the end of it all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Oh, no, I forgot. Price, we have prices. That's the very last thing that we are going to do. So, all right. Yes, okay.
Okay, you've got a question. Oh, must I ask a question?
Wait.
Come up with something.
Okay, remember guys at the beginning of the presentation, we said you must listen carefully because we've got prizes, right? 5 prizes. So we've got 5 questions. I'm gonna go first. I hope my panelists each have their questions. So my question, so that they don't steal my question, it's what's the minimum number of contracts in a film? He said it when he was here. Okay, that hand went up as 10. Okay, so she gets the prize.
The GFC spoke about some of the projects it's working on. I think there were 5 of them. What is one of them that's coming up?
I knew you were going to get that. What? Book to Film Challenge.
Book to Film Challenge, yeah.
She's been the most participating.
You should have told us we should come up with questions. I'm sorry, I'm gone blank.
I did indicate a specific section within the Communications Regulatory Act that exempts the
Department of Broadcasting from regulation.
You're pointing one side. Section 31. Yeah.
Do you have a question, Chair?
All right, I have another one. Where do you register your intellectual property? Where do you register your intellectual property? Okay, that hand went up first. Whiteboard. Is it whiteboard? No. It's not whiteboard. Cifra, yes.
There's one more. Okay.
Oh, yes. How many copies? Yes. What does NDA stand for? Yes, you guys have been great. Thank you.
Can we please give our panel a big round of applause? We appreciate you. We thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time that we take a break. Before we take a break, there are these two cars outside. B521 BBI, B521 BBI, B996 BRE, B996 BRE. Please, back to second hand and then we are coming back after an hour. Yes, we are coming back after an hour. Thank you very much.